Well, joining us now to discuss this further, we are joined by Salem Diafta, Credit Ombudsman Public Relations Manager, as well as Sydney Sakese, Certified Financial Planner, Financial Planning Institute of South Africa. A little bit later, we will be joined by Zamani Twala, who is the actual victim of this loan scam. But I'm going to start with my two guests in studio. Good evening, and thank you to the both of you for joining us here on ANN7.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
It's our pleasure. So talk to us about, how prevalent are scams of this nature? Is it something that we are seeing happen more and more in South Africa?
Definitely. We are seeing an increase in the cases that are reported to bodies like the Credit Ombudsman, for example, where consumers have gone to apply for a loan. They've seen an advert that says we don't need to do credit checks. Even if you are blacklisted, you are welcome to come and apply for the loan. So we see a lot of those complaints because at a later stage, the interests that are being charged and every other thing that comes with that is actually a big problem for consumers in South Africa. So yes, definitely there is an increase.
And Sydney, this is obviously a result of the lack of planning, specifically financial planning.
Yeah, for sure. And most of the time, these people are gullible because they didn't have appropriate planning. And they often think financial planning is for the elite, whereas financial planning really is for everybody, irrespective of the level of income or affordability. So, it also boils down to budgeting, and budgeting is a skillful or, a savvy way of ensuring that you are aware of where your expenses go and in relation to your income. Yeah.
Salem, we've now heard the very sad story of Zamani, who unfortunately fell victim to one of these scams. But listening to his story, you can see that he was desperate at some point. He really needed the money. What sort of red flags and precautions should someone take when you are given such an opportunity, or you get that SMS, you get that email, and this is exactly what you need at this time? What do you need to be careful of? What are those red flags?
If the process is quick and simple, because as consumers sometimes we don't want to go through the processes as set out by the National Credit Act. I mean, before you are borrowed money, they need to make sure that you can afford it. So there's an affordability assessment that goes into that application where a consumer will need to actually let the credit provider know of all their expenses. I mean, down to the detail of entertainment, how much you spend on your cell phone, and also they need to do credit checks. So when you see an advert that says blacklisted welcome, why would somebody want to extend credit to you when there's no guarantee that you can afford it? So in as much as they don't ask for documents, they don't make you sign, and it seems as though it's a simple process, they're not doing you a favor. So when it's a quick and easy, come in, get the money, go, there is definitely a problem there.
When it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It probably is. It probably is. Sydney, how do people end up in these sort of situations? I mean, I'm sure you've worked with many South Africans, helping them with their financial planning. But when engaging with the public, how do people end up in situations where they are blacklisted or they just can't get credit anymore?
Yes, it boils down also to overspending, living beyond your means during the year, and also as you mentioned, this January, usually in December we overspend without considering the January expenses. So they become so overwhelmed with a false impression that when they get a bonus in December they are suddenly rich, and it's a false impression. So again, if you're lucky enough to get a windfall in December, have a plan in place even before you receive that, because you'll need that. So I think the trend shows that it's because of lack of planning when you get a windfall. so to say.
Just want to remind our viewers that this is a call-in show. You are welcome to call us and give us your views. If you've been a victim, let us know your situation as well and what's happened to you. Maybe our guest in studio can help you find a way out of that situation. The number you can call will flash up on your screen any minute now. Do engage in the conversation on social media as well. At ANN7 TV is our Twitter handle. But Sydney, I just want to continue the conversation we are having. And maybe you can advise some of our viewers who have found themselves in a similar situation as Zamani. What is the way out here? How do you help yourself get rid of that blacklisting on your name? What are the steps that you can take? And maybe you can get involved in that discussion as well.
Just to take a step back, also, if you're offered an opportunity to access the credit provider, you need to do your homework in terms of whether they are registered with the NCR and the Financial Services Board. So you do your own homework before you go into that. So not all credit providers are bad, but you need to undergo that own self-assessment and due diligence. And the first one is really to be honest that, with yourself and affirm that you are actually in debt. Tackle that debt and don't hide behind closed doors, or also engage with if you've got family, engage with your family members to help you out of the situation. And also prioritize the debt, categorize it in terms of short-term, medium, and long-term debts. And approach your service providers. They're also human. They're ready to listen to any proposal that you may put in front of them, and you can work away a plan to get out of debt.
And also, one mistake that consumers do sometimes is to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. So we always say, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. So don't make any borrowing whatsoever. Rather work on a way of actually getting out of that debt. I think it's important to understand that cost of debt, how much is outstanding, and how far or how long will it take for me to actually get out of it and make adjustments. I mean, it's simple things like lift clubs, it's adjusting how much you spend on your data, but also understand what is happening in your credit profile. Because what we see is consumers go and apply for credit from a registered lender. They are declined credit for whatever reason. They don't even do the homework to understand why they are declined credit. Then they go to unregistered lenders because they are guaranteed to get the money. Meanwhile, if you take the time, look at your credit profile, you might actually find that it's something that can be fixed in 20 business days. And after that, you are back at it again. You can actually go and apply for credit or whatever the case may be, but understand first. And like Sydney has said, if they are not registered, it's very hard to actually try and bring them to book, to make them comply with the National Credit Act, because sometimes we investigate and you're looking for these people, the email address no longer exists. They are no longer at the address. And if they meet you in the street, we are not there. Who's there to protect you? Your ID book is gone, your bank card, sometimes they take those. So it's just very important to understand what is the problem. Why was I declined? Can I fix it? How long will it take for me to fix it, so that if you apply from a registered lender and any unfairness is happening in the industry, you have recourse. You can go to bodies like your credit ombud to go and complain that I've been treated unfairly or I've been overcharged interest or whatever the case may be.
So, a very interesting question that you raised there. A lot of people don't ask themselves, why why have I been declined? When someone is declined, what are the steps that they can take to find out what is going on with their credit? And also, what are the most common reasons why South Africans are finding themselves in these difficult situations?
All right. So when you apply for credit, you have a right as a consumer for reasons why you are being declined.
Okay.
So the credit provider should actually give you reasons. But the most common reasons why consumers are declined credit are affordability, Number one, because they do what is called an affordability assessment to look at your income versus your expenses, but also your credit report, how you've handled your previous accounts or your existing accounts. Because simple things like skipping payments, paying late, short payments, those are the things that could actually temper and make your credit profile look bad. And that's what is taken into consideration when they do what is called a credit score.
Okay.
So it's very important that you understand the two common reasons are a bad credit report and affordability. When a consumer won't be able to afford, or the credit provider sees that if we extend credit to this consumer, we will overload this consumer.
Sydney, I'm going to come to you, and I just want to talk to you about the other option that people take, and that is simply not paying and trying to run away from this problem, avoiding the letters that are sent in the mail, avoiding the SMSs. Why is that the wrong route to take?
Yeah, look, you end up being indebted for life, and because you're frustrated, you may find yourself, robbing Peter to pay Paul again, and it's a spiraling impact on your holistic financial plan, and it also derails your goals in terms of reaching that wealth, health. Your health wellness will be also tempered if you ignore those letters.
Let's go to the phone lines. We have a caller. We've got Philemon from Peter Maritzburg. Good evening to you, Philemon. What is your question or your story?
What I want to know is, you know the scamsters. Did you manage to trace where they are, their premises? Did you do any further investigation?
I think we need to get our reporter in to discuss with regards to whether any further developments were made in that regard. But Salem, let me come to you and just you maybe can explain to Philemon with regards to finding these culprits and getting your money back. Is that something that often happens in the country? Is it possible to locate these people and let the law run its course with regards to what they've done?
So you find that we need more bodies involved. I mean, the SAPS as well, because it's borderlining criminal as well now, because the way that these people actually collect on their debt. I mean, we've had one consumer who's actually been paying and paying and paying, and the lender kept pushing the goalposts, to say, yes, you are a day late, therefore I want another 5,000 rands from you. Sometimes they go and embarrass the people in the workplace, and sometimes it becomes violent. So you find that now the police need to get involved as well to trace these people. It's very hard, because if you were given an email address that only existed for 2 days, and they've run away with lots of money from the consumers, it does become very hard and very tricky to trace these scammers.
It does indeed. We've got another caller on the line. We've got Colin from East London. Good evening to you, Colin. What is your comment or your story?
Hi, good evening. It's Colleen.
Apologies, Colleen. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, I would just like to know the insight that you had now with Zamani. Okay, the address of this business, the operating address is bogus, right? So I want to know, what is the point then of the banks taking in proof of address if the business is being operated from a bogus address? Are the banks not supposed to verify the address?
I think, Colleen, in that instance, it's not necessarily the banks who are asking for the address. It's the scammers themselves asking for these documents to make it seem legit. Salem, this is, again, some of the warning signs that you need to take into consideration. These people asking for your banking details, asking for proof of residence like an institution would do. But it's very difficult then to differentiate between what is legit and what is not legit.
And usually their adverts, when they advertise, get a loan up to so much, let's make an example, 100,000 rands or whatever, they would put that advert, and most of the time it just comes with a phone number, nothing else. right? So how do you as a consumer then verify? Because we always say to consumers, make sure that they are registered. A registered credit provider will have an office space, number one, but number two, you will see the NCR sticker. It's that orange, it's written in orange, NCR. So you will see it. And the if you don't see it, ask for the NCR number. Because if it's a registered credit provider, it'll be NCRCP. If it's a registered debt counselor, it will be NCRDC. So there is a registration for all those who are actually operating legally and the way in which they should be operating. So you will then struggle to prove if you don't actually see that they are, even the online ones, you can actually check to see if they are registered. So when they ask for your documents, the fact that it's simple to get is a big warning sign.
It definitely is. Sydney, with regards to how you go ahead and clear your name, what sort of tips would you give our viewers watching now? You are a accredited financial planner. What sort of tips and tricks can you and how can you advise our viewers on better financial planning going into 2016? Like we said earlier, the festive season is now over. We are in the month of January.
Yeah.
Things can get very difficult financially. What tips could you afford our viewers?
Sure. The Financial Planning Institute recommends a simple 1, 2, 3 management principle, which says the first one is to reduce debt. And reducing debt means prioritizing, as I indicated, short-term, long-term, and medium-term debt. And tackle it one step at a time. Don't be overwhelmed with different kind of debt. And the second principle is to, once you've reduced it to an affordable level, have what we call an emergency fund. Emergency fund is really for those emergencies where you find that the cash is needed immediately. So that emergency fund will assist in avoiding having to access debt. And once you have a comfortable emergency fund, then you inculcate a habit of saving. And once you're used to saving, then you invest, because there's a slight difference between saving and investing.
Okay.
Yeah, so those three principles.
I see. Yeah. So let me come to you, and viewers who are maybe still concerned that they found themselves in this sort of situation, who's responsible for handling cases and situations of this nature? Who's responsible to be cracking down on these loan sharks or scammers? And also, if our viewers are in a difficult situation, quick steps they can do to try and get themselves out of this.
Consumers can lodge a complaint with bodies like the Credit Ombudsman or the National Credit Regulator to actually try and curb or try and stop. But I mean, remember, your money is gone, right? Your money is gone. And that's why we want to say to consumers, understand upfront that there's nothing easy. We are a generation that we want quick things. We want it, and we want it now. And sometimes we find ourselves in these situations because I want to keep up with the Kumalos, right? So I live beyond my means. So the first thing is to just have a reality check. Do I really need this loan? Sometimes the call will come and say, hi Salem, you qualify for. You have been pre-selected and pre-approved for. Do I really need that? No, because if I needed it, I was going to be making that call myself. So it's very important to understand your financial situation. If I cannot afford it, I cannot afford it. The fact that I need to take it out on credit, it means I can't afford it. So the more realistic I am with myself, the better. Get your credit report. Understand your financial status and understand your debt. What is costing you more? Look at the interests that are being charged. If this debt is being charged at a high interest, maybe you'd want to tackle that one first, because the quicker you pay a debt that is carrying high interest, the more you're actually saving for yourself to actually close up other debt as well. So it's all about being realistic with yourself. Get your credit report, because your credit report gives you an indication of me as Salem sitting here you are sitting with debt of 400,000 rands in total. You are sitting with debt of 1.8 million rands, and you know exactly where you stand. So your credit report is always your best bet. And if you're not sure who can help you, you can contact your credit ombuds, your NCR to find out.
Thank you very much, Salem. We are running out of time, but we've got Zamani Twala on via satellite. He joins us, who is actually one of the loan scam victims. Zamani, thank you for joining us. We are running out of time, but Zamani, I just want to hear from you why you felt as if you could take this chance, and whether or not at any point throughout this entire process you felt as if you were making a mistake and you felt uneasy. Also, like one of our callers asked, has there been any headway made with regards to any sort of investigations? Zamani, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you.
Zamani, I think let's just tackle the one question one of our viewers asked, and that's with regards to their investigation. Have you received any sort of help with regards to the scam that you have been involved in?
No, furthermore, I haven't received anything.
Sort of help or guidance?
Yeah, someone tried to help me, but when we get to that place where they were located, then we find that they were relocated, but we don't know where they went.
Zamani, just quickly, why did you find it so necessary to follow through with this entire process? Was there no point in this process where you felt uneasy and where you felt as if maybe this wasn't the best idea?
Yeah, sometimes we will never know, because I've tried so many times that no, I will get some money somewhere, but when I got that SMS, then I thought that no, everything is fine now. I'll get this money and sort my things out. So, but I didn't know it was a scam. So maybe it was the last time, obvious. I want to